Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Premiership Podcast. We are your hosts, Jacob,
and Elijah.
and let's get crack-a-lacking into round 15, the most boring rounds of football I've ever seen,
Yeah.
minus probably two games. The teams that had the bye this week, for reference, it was the Blues, the Kangaroos, the Power, the Dogs, the Giants, and Richmond. And we're going at random here because it was such a boring, non-complacent round.
Let's knock them out of the way.
Adelaide versus the Pies, where the Pies came back in a thrilling spectacle as they usually do. 82-80. John Noble is the GOAT, and Jordan Dawson just had no help.
No, none at all. Jordan Dawson, he had 12 tackles, 35 disposals, 9 score involvements. He was everywhere. He couldn't have done more for this side to get the win, but in the end, just a little too little. Only lost by 2, it's 82-80. But I really liked that third quarter comeback from the Crows. I think it was 7 goals in that third quarter.
Yes, correct.
To nothing. That was really, really good. Turning that all the way around. When you go down 30 odd points, basically flipping the script back, and all of a sudden you're in it. You're leading into that fourth quarter. But no, Pies just do what they do best and got a hold of them. But I think this is a lot closer than I thought it would be.
I do agree with that.
Yeah. But no, full credit to, I guess, the Crows. Probably wouldn't expect us to win this one. It's in Melbourne, MCG, against Collingwood. There's not a whole lot you can do there. But hey, they got it. Nearly. And there's a lot to take away from this, good and bad.
I think I sent you this the other day. Collingwood have versed the Crows twice this year, and the combined margin of the Pies winning against the Crows is only 3 points.
Yeah.
So the Crows are in there. They're probably the most competitive team outside the top four. But it was interesting to see after the game with the umpires agreeing that the Jordan Dawson incident with a couple seconds to go was originally supposed to be a free kick. That would make Crows fans livid, but you can't really change the past.
No.
The Crows put on a spectacle in that third quarter. The Pies pretty much had them by the throat, and then the Crows did some karate moves, chopped the hand out of their throat. And Tex Walker on top of the Coleman ladder list, by the way, Elijah. The 33-year-old Tex, but then you got on the other side the big Texan, Mason Cox, causing a bit of argy-bargy, getting his goggles ripped off.
Yeah.
But yeah, Collingwood just do what they usually do. They usually just come back in the last quarter and they say, never die. They're an annoying pest of a team if I was the opposition, but they're just so exciting and so positive. I like to rave on about their culture and how positive the vibe is at Collingwood. Jeremy Howe returning, Nick Dacos doing what he does, Josh Dacos doing what he does. My question to you, Elijah, is the Dacos brothers, or are the Dacos brothers the best brothers in the league?
Yes. I don't think it's really close.
Mm.
Thinking about what are the other brothers in the league that are can be considered.
Mackay's, which
Well, everyone knows our opinion on the Blues Mackay.
Kitty Coleman and the other Coleman, he's in the VFL, who's only played a couple games of AFL. You got the Rayner brothers there and the
Yeah.
Dunkley brothers there.
The Kernos.
The Brayshaw brothers.
They're good. I think they're up there, but I don't think that the level of production they've probably got combined really got what the Dacos brothers are doing. Nick Dacos basically alone won Collingwood this game. And he single-handedly brought them back against Melbourne, and then won week nearly every week single-handedly,
Mm.
or at least in the close games. So he's, yeah, I don't think he can say much. I don't think there's much competition. Actually, Brayshaw's probably the closest ones to him at the moment, but yeah.
And I just like to mention as well that there are going to be three brothers in the league soon. There's going to be the Sarong brothers playing at Fremantle and
Mm-hmm.
Jai Sarong, who's at Hawthorn. And the last brother that I know of who's about to join the AFL is Zane Dersma. He's the brother of Dersma from Port Adelaide. And that Dersma trained with Melbourne.
Hmm.
And Van Royen's brother is eligible for the draft, I think, this year as well.
Oh yeah.
But on to the next game where we've gone from an absolute spectacle to an absolute catastrophe. It was like that Simpsons meme where it's like, stop it, he's already dead.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sydney versus West Coast. Sydney, the first team to break 200 points since 2011,
Mm-hmm.
where Geelong versus Melbourne at GMHBA. 205-34. What can I say about this game?
Well, the SCG official page posted Sydney Swans 200. We should save these ones for the summer. So
I remember seeing a
yeah,
post or a news article saying Swans 205 to the Goose 34.
yeah. Um,
So a lot of flack heading West Coast's way, but as we know, West Coast aren't that good this year.
no.
But for Sydney to rally up a 200-point lead, I'd like to see that sort of effort against top tier teams.
Or any
That's
other
that's it.
teams.
Any other team. That's the only criticism that I have for Sydney for this game, but they did get the dub either way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What did you think of the game?
I reckon it's one of the best innings at the SCG of all time. I mean, 205 points. You can't get much better than that. Um,
Mm,
I mean, look, West Coast. There's just a lot of lack of effort and
mm,
passion, and there's not a whole lot going on.
mm,
I don't know what else I can say. Things need to change because
mm,
players are not enthusiastic at all. There's no effort. There's no one's trying.
mm,
They're playing so they can go home,
mm.
right? It's like,
And
oh,
there are players there who are being paid quite the amount, like
mm,
Tim Kelly, McGovern, who's injured at the moment. Um, I guess the only player that I could say is putting in a lot of effort at the moment for the Eagles, and he's probably on track to be their best and fairest for the year, and that is Oscar Allen. Oscar Allen is doing fantastically. He's also in like the top 8 or top 6 for the common medal. So there's a bit of light
mm,
there, but there's obviously 22, 23 players on the team now. So one player can't carry the load unless you're
no.
Nick Dacos.
I mean, there's flashes from a lot of others. I
Mm,
know Dom Sheed usually is pretty good. He was not
mm,
that against Sydney. Um, Duggan as well. He's up there.
mm.
Shuey, Kelly, Yo. They're flashes. But that's all it is. It's
Crisp.
yeah. It's just flashes. It's nothing
Mm,
sustainable. It's nothing like, oh, this is a good player. It's like, okay, they do their thing for about a minute or two, the here and there,
mm,
and the rest of the time I don't know. I don't know what
mm,
they're doing because they're not doing anything. If I'm
mm.
honest.
I know the Eagles are firm on keeping Adam Simpson. And they've released a statement that they really want to keep him until the end of his contract, until 2025. But usually coaches don't survive this um, sort of thrashing and mass genocide against the Eagles.
No. Um, I mean, I guess if it's like I was gonna say a newer coach, you can get away with it, but even then,
Mm,
there's even less of a chance they last.
mm,
So I sorry, Eagles. Something needs to change. Whether it's the coach, whether it's everyone else, but
Mm,
something isn't happening here. Um,
mm.
I think they
Um,
have the talent to get
mm.
out of the bottom four, but nothing's happening. So,
They've still got a plethora of players from the 2018 grand final
mm,
who you'd expect to still be at some form of prime, even though they've had injuries like Yo, Shuey, etc., McGovern. But you'd expect them to really pull their weight as leaders of the club instead of players like even Jinby, Elijah Hewitt. Like those sort of players are pretty much, I feel, the youthful players are putting in more effort than their actual senior players.
mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, Talking about mass murders, Jeremy Cameron got murdered by Gary Rowan when Geelong bet Melbourne at GMHBA 78-63. What will Geelong do without Jeremy Cameron, Elijah?
Cope. I
Cope?
mean, it's Geelong. They'll find a way. I've no
Mm,
doubt. They're a good team. They know their system.
mm,
Um, a bit different to last year, obvious reasons.
mm,
But I think so far to this point, they haven't been too bad. I think
mm,
they're definitely pushing for that top 8 spot, and I think they'll probably make it there.
mm.
Um, I'm not as worried. I think they can definitely make other opportunities elsewhere. I mean, in this game alone, Gary Rowan had 3 goals.
Gary Rowan was fantastic. He really, his mentality after accidentally bumping his teammate Jeremy Cameron, he really stood up for the team when the team needed him as that key forward. Because I don't think Tom Hawkins was playing. I didn't see him when I was watching the game. But yeah, Jeremy Cameron out of the game is huge for Geelong. Even though he isn't up to the standard that he was at the start of the season,
Mm-hmm.
he's still a major pillar, like a Stewart, Dangerfield, Cameron, all their senior players who usually make their All Australian team. But Melbourne is Gorn and Grundy working. There needs to be a huge call on Gorn and Grundy, and even then, I saw a debate that Grundy should go to Geelong just after signing with Melbourne this year. So
Mm,
what can Melbourne do with Grundy and Gorn? Because it works at times, but when it doesn't work, it's not sustainable. And also with that as well, I do not trust Melbourne making it past the preliminary final due to the fact that their forward line is in shambles.
yeah, right.
They don't have a key forward, even though Collingwood can be the same. But at the same time, they've got the likes of Brady Myercheck, Ash Johnson. They've got uniqueness and players who actually attack and can kick goals. There's a variety. Whereas Melbourne, there's nothing really there as that key forward. Like Brisbane have Joe Danaher, Eric Hipwood. They've got everything there that just can't win in Melbourne. And what's the other team in the top four? Port Adelaide. They've got their three tools. They've got Finlayson, Dixon, and Todd Marshall. Where can Melbourne kick their goals? Is my question to you, Elijah. And where, but minus Ben Roy and Fritsch, who are somewhat out of form. And what do Melbourne do about Gordon Grundy?
I I don't know what to do about the forward situation.
Mm,
I think Fritch is the one they're depending on to be that big man, and whoever of Gordon Grundy goes back forward.
mm.
But I don't think they have a solution for that one. Or don't have one. Um, However, what might help if they send, it's a good idea, Grundy over to Geelong. I don't think it's as. I think they could definitely explore that as an option.
Because Geelong don't have that ruck there. They've got Reece
Mhm.
Stanley and Jonathan Segler, but they're in and out of the side, both of them. And then Whitsubs is a utility. But even though Grundy just signed a contract with Melbourne, can
uh,
Grundy going to Geelong really allow him to show his flair.
I don't think it's a bad idea to look at and explore.
Mm,
I think, yeah, Blitzars isn't a ruck. He can play ruck, but he's not a ruckman, as
mm,
opposed to a Grundy.
mm,
And Segler is too, but he's got a bit more to develop on, and he's in and out of the
mm,
side, injuries and whatever else. Um, so I don't think it's a bad idea to explore. Ideally, you'd get some bigger forward players in return. Whether Geelong's willing to part ways with anyone like that, I don't know. But also, I'm not sure with Grundy, even if it fits in that kind of age demographic of the team.
mm,
They have younger players like Bruin, Henry, like younger guys.
mm,
But it's very almost bipolar at Geelong. You
mm,
have the younger guys, and then you have like Hawkins and Dangerfield, and yeah, it's either you're old or you're new, or you're
mm,
young rather. So I don't know if Grundy kind of fits that demographic or how it fit into the team. But
mm,
I don't think it's a bad idea to explore to get more options as
mm,
a forward line for Melbourne.
mm,
Because I think if you think back to King's birthday against Collingwood,
mhm,
they still managed to get on top.
mm,
And I mean, on the scoreboard, I mean, neither team was super pretty, but that's been because of
mm,
the way Collingwood plays, or at least that's the way I boiled it down to.
mm,
So, yeah, I mean, you can explore it,
mm.
but yeah, at the moment, it's Visca's fridge.
I just like to add on to what Elijah's saying. Melbourne have some reserves players that I feel like should get some form of opportunity. Um, Josh Shackey is one of them.
Yeah,
Shackey, what has happened to Ben Brown? McDonald is in and out of form when he comes into the senior team. And then they've got their youthful players, like there's a rookie listed player, Faras something, weird last name, but he's that tall key forward, and really developing him with Van Rooyen, who's a unique athletic forward, and Fritsch, and Pickett as well, who's just re-signed. Melbourne needs something like they just need someone who can take a clunk mark and kick those 2, 3 goals, similar to a Jared Rufford back in the day, to a Josh Kennedy, to a not really Lance Franklin because he was more athletic. Jay Schultz,
mm.
more. You catch my drift.
Yeah,
Melbourne need to discover something. So then, and this is not saying that Melbourne can't win the grand final. This is just criticism that they need to improve on their forward craftsmanship and their ruck duoship, if that's even a word.
mm.
But on to the next game, Fremantle Bombers.
Yep,
Fremantle getting over the Bombers 93-61.
yep. Um, yeah, this was an okay game. All things considered,
Mm,
I guess.
mm,
Rio just too good, but um, no. Uh, a lot of good performances from other players there. So wrong. As we know, he's had a really good year this year. Brayshaw, usual suspects. But I feel like, and I don't know if you feel the same way. I feel like Essendon losing here is just a common theme with the whole you have a bye, you lose. Um,
yeah.
I feel like it's kind of just in that situation. I don't think they played poorly. I mean, they obviously did. They lost. And I mean, the biggest lead of the game was 30 odd points.
Mm,
But I mean, all things considered, it wasn't a bad fight.
mm,
Especially in that first quarter, I want to say.
mm,
And I guess the second half as well, but the damage is already done.
mm.
So
Yeah. Bombers, the Bomber forward line needs to step up. They've got Wiedemann. He didn't really have a presence. Wright was there. He was, his second, third game back. He just didn't look there compared to the Carlton game. But those are pretty much... Wiedemann's the player that I feel like needs to be put under the microscope. He played really well. He's a good role player, but I'd like to see him kick those 1, 2, even 3 goals to maintain some score involvement, because you had players, again, looking at Premiership teams, you had teams like Hawthorn, where Jared Ruffhead would kick those 2, 3 goals. And having a player who makes a team 2, 3 goals better will pay dividends.
Yeah.
Because if you get score onto the board, then obviously you're getting more points onto the scoreboard. That's Captain Obvious. But Fremantle, the Sean Darcy, Luke Jackson duo, I feel like that's going really well for them at the moment, with Sean Darcy coming back from injury. Fremantle have a really exciting prospect with their forward line. They've got Amis, Sturt, and Tracy.
Mm-hmm.
That's so exciting. I don't think Luke Jackson played. I think Tracy was that backup midfielder. Ruckman, sorry. But it's really exciting, and it's a breath of fresh air that Fremantle can move forward and have that key forwards, similar to how Matthew Pavlich moved Fremantle forward as that key forward. But yeah, Fremantle are on and off though, so I don't really trust them moving into the finals. But yet again, they could make a final push, like every team can. So I'm not doubting they can't make a push. But at the moment, if the finals were to start today, I don't think they're even in the top 8. If they were in the top 8, I wouldn't trust them. But yeah.
Yeah, Essendon's sitting 6th right now, Rio and 11th.
Yeah, there we are.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it's mainly just Rio going inside 50 and just being more efficient, per se. Once again, didn't watch this game. But, yeah. And I mean, the tackle count as well, I think kind of explains it a bit. You didn't have a single Essendon player who got over 4 tackles or laid over 4 tackles. And I mean, Zach Merritt, Snelling, and Hobbs were the only players who had 4 tackles. Everyone else is below that. Whereas on the flip side, you had Brayshaw had 8, and Johnson was 7. So yeah. I'm just laying this down to the bye syndrome, where it's like, oh, we had a bye, we've got to lose now. So,
both teams moving forward have really exciting things to look forward to with their youth, and mature players. On to the Gold Coast game, where McAndrew and Brew destroyed the Hawks 101-34. McAndrew just clunked everything.
Yep. And yeah, the Hawks, once again, I'm basically lying this down to it was a bye. But it's just a bit of lack of passion, about lack of effort. In this one, basically from halftime onwards. I guess the second quarter, really. Gold Coast just, I think, outplayed Hawthorn throughout most of that game, and I don't think there's a whole lot much I can say. It was just a team diff, if I'm honest. Yeah.
I'd like to talk about Gold Coast, especially their forward line. They played Levi Casbolt, and Mabio Chol has been left out of the squad for quite some time. So what is the go with Mabio Chol and having Levi Casbolt in the team as well? Levi Casbolt is a fantastic player. He's a behemoth of a bloke. But Mabio Chol, what's happened with him? And yeah, Gold Coast were just fantastic. Mitch Lewis had a fantastic game, actually. He took a couple of clunks there where he looked like a very special player. Mitch Lewis moving forward is going to be fantastic. I'd like to see Hawthorn keep Jakob Kajitsky and keep developing him as that role player key forward.
I agree.
But Mitch Lewis moving forward is going to be our player who kicks that 50-plus goals.
Yeah.
He's going to be our next player.
He's our buddy Franklin.
Yeah.
Oh, kind of. More Jared Offhead. But yes, yeah.
Even, like, we've got players like Dylan Moore and him, Mitch Lewis, who we got as very high draft picks in terms of numbers, like pick 56, pick 63, or whatever it was. And in terms of development, it just shows that no matter where you are on the draft, you can become anything you want. Even if you're number 1 or pick 71. Like, you can, if you put your mind to it, even though, like Nick Dacos, you got those generational people like Nick Dacos, Ashcroft.
Yeah.
You got those sort of players who just slide into the system, similar to like a Joel Selwood when he was entering into the AFL. But it just shows that wherever you're picked up, you can do whatever you want with your career. You can just sit down and think, oh, let's pick 71. I'm not going to do much. Or you can actually put your head down, be in the system for 2-3 years, and then really show what you're made of.
Well, sometimes it doesn't work.
That is as
there
well.
have been guys who's hasn't worked, but I guess with football, there's that many people on the field. There's always that opportunity to be good and have a good game and at least put yourself out there. And I think that opportunity is enough where you'll take it. You know, it's not like, say, the NBA where the disparity between your Victor Wembanyama versus the last pick in the second round is like Wembanyama's trying to get every single game this season. If he's not injured, I guess next season, he's going to play every single game for the Spurs that he gets, right? Because he'll be that good. He's the best player on the team already, at least that we know of. Whereas you look on the other side, it's like, well, this guy's not going to get a game for the other 5 years. He may not ever get a game. Purely because he'll be looked at as, oh, he was pick 48 of the NBA draft, and he's not as good as Jokic or Murray. He can't fill those spots. We'll leave him in the G League, which is unfortunate. But at least in football, the opportunity is there, and it's enough where, yeah, you'll take that. So,
and that's not to mention that that's not to mention. I get where you're coming from. And that's not to mention that some higher draft picks, in terms of highly rated draft picks, like pick 1 to 20, that they haven't failed as well. I'd like to point fingers at Jack Trengove.
Yeah.
Who played for Melbourne and Port Adelaide. He was like a number 1 draft pick, and then instantly, bam, captain. Probably could have been developed better by Melbourne, but at the time Melbourne were in similar circumstances to what West Coast were in. So there are plenty of players over the history of the AFL who have succeeded and failed wherever you are on the draft pendulum. You can be a high draft pick in terms of ratings. You can be highly rated and then just fail. Similar to what Dersma is at the moment. He's a question mark on his career at Port Adelaide. He'll still play, don't get me wrong, but his question mark is what's his place in the team. And then you have players who are high in the draft pick in terms of picks, and they can succeed or they can not play any games whatsoever due to Elijah's analysis as to if you're a higher draft pick in terms of pick, you won't be played as you're a higher draft pick. So I get where you're coming from, Elijah.
I mean, you mean later draft pick?
Later draft pick, yeah. On to the most boring game that I've ever watched. This game would make blind kids cry. St Kilda, Brisbane. St Kilda had nothing, and Brisbane had everything. It was. I watched the whole game, and I reckon I spaced out, and I reckon watching the golf would have been a much more enjoying spectacle compared to this game. I'm gonna rant about this game and pretty much 85% of the other games because I watched pretty much every game but the Hawthorn Gold Coast game and the Sydney West Coast game. But this game was such a bore. It was a nothing game against two teams in the top 8. Brisbane played really well at Marvel, by the way. They've made that their second home away from home. If only they could win at the MCG.
Yeah.
But St Kilda, disappointing.
They were. I do want to highlight a few players though I thought were good.
Okay.
Jack Sinclair did really well on my fantasy team.
I agree. Yeah.
Roy Marshall as well.
I agree with that.
Really good on my fantasy team. I didn't have anyone else though, so I can't say. But I expected the Saints to win this one. I thought they were coming off a bye, but I thought the game after the bye they would click. Is that Marvel? Brisbane doesn't travel too well. Okay, there is a chance. But I guess they didn't show that at all. And I think you'll see in the power rankings right after this game, it's St Kilda's somehow got worse, and they are, on the ladder they're 5th, but they're not showing it. In fact, quite the opposite. So, but yeah.
Watching this game as a TV spectator, I witnessed a team that wasn't willing to take risks compared to the Lions, who played flamboyantly. They played with flair, with a lot of, with a lack of a better term, oxygen. That's probably a dumb saying. That's probably going on no context AFL, but they just played with such inspiration and they didn't hesitate to move the ball forward, even though they probably kicked into gear after 3/4 time. Not gonna lie, it was really close as well. Like it was such a bore. Like I can't really remember this game, but I do remember Brisbane were the better team due to the fact that they were willing to take risks, and St Kilda just not up to the battle. St Kilda as well. The King just has no presence at the moment up forward. Sinclair and Wilkie are probably their two best players at the moment. And Machito Owens played okay. There's a couple of players that played okay games, but what can St Kilda do to turn this around? And my answer to that is playing more flamboyantly, taking risks. First option, no hesitation, because you see teams like Collingwood where they don't hesitate to take a risky handball, that 50-50 handball that they always win, because even though it's 50-50 situation, they make the situation more likely and in their favour to succeed.
Yeah.
So moving forward, I'd like to see St Kilda switch it around. I really want to see St Kilda prove us wrong, especially with the power rankings, because they're not doing so well.
Definitely. And I mean, this team is meant to be enough for their defense, and Eric Hipwood of all people kicked 4 goals.
Yeah, who's Eric Hipwood? Like, he's this tall, slender man, no muscle bloke with a interesting left foot.
Yeah, to be fair, Danaher as well, you can describe similarly, and he hit too. So, oh well.
On to the power rankings.
Yes, power rankings.
Woohoo! Yeah.
Okay. Few change-ups.
I'll
Um,
let you discuss them.
okay. So top four and bottom four actually, pretty much the exact same as the
Mm-hmm.
previous few weeks now. They're not changing anytime soon, I don't think, unless Adelaide decide to make more noise. They've moved up a little bit just over the doggies. Now we know the doggies have had the bye,
Mm-hmm.
but I think Adelaide fought really, really hard against Collingwood, and they made it really competitive, even if it was just through
Mm-hmm.
1.5 quarters of footy. So they're up there. They've moved up
Mm-hmm.
to fifth now. I think it's pretty deserved. Um,
Mm-hmm. They're the most competitive team, not just in power rankings, but in the AFL as a whole. They're the most dangerous team outside the top four.
yeah,
And the only question mark I have on them is the exact same to what Port Adelaide have. It's what their defence going to do against the tall forwards of the league.
yeah. Yes.
Mm.
Moving down, Geelong and Richmond moved into top eight. To be completely honest, this is where I'm thinking the finals will shape up to be. This top eight here, maybe not
Mm-hmm.
in order, but certainly these teams.
Mm-hmm.
St Kilda, I can't. Looking at this, you can see can't see lasting the top eight, and Essendon
Mm-hmm.
likewise. Although Essendon have a chance, I do want to say that. But
Mm-hmm.
Richmond, really, I think really good. Uh, they had a bye, but considering everything else, and in retrospect, it's like, yeah, they're kind of up there. They're a good team.
Mm-hmm.
They deserve a top eight spot, and then Geelong knocked over Melbourne. Granted, it was in
Mm-hmm.
Geelong, but knocked over Melbourne. Pretty much without Jeremy Cameron.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that deserves something on its own. So I think we also hold the wins of Essendon and Gold Coast a bit lower as well.
Mm-hmm.
So Geelong moving up against above them. But yeah, Suns beating Hawks by a fair bit. But
Mm-hmm.
I think, once again, don't do it, Jacob. I'm holding that too. Bye. It's just the bye syndrome. And they're sitting just outside there. Essendon, similar boat. Obviously the other way around. The Giants sneaking up to 11th. They had the bye, but
Mm-hmm.
Jacob kind of thinking that they're better than the Rio Dockers.
I do think that they are better.
Hmm.
And we'll see what happens this week. And they versus Melbourne
Yeah,
in
that
Canberra. In Canberra. So it's closer to the Giants than Melbourne, even though Melbourne have the home game. Or home
Dayton Traeger Park.
that's
Is that Darwin? No,
Darwin or Canberra. Either or.
could be Darwin. Either
Is it
way,
Darwin?
either way, good challenge. And we know the Giants.
For both teams
Yeah,
actually.
we know how competitive the Giants are. So that, yeah, prime time on a Sunday, that could be a really good one to watch.
Mm.
Although I want to go to Hawks Blues, that'd be banger too. For all the wrong reasons though. Finishing off this one, Saints slipping below the Swans and Freo down to 14th. We're not impressed, are we? We just explained it before. There's just a lack of nearly everything at this point.
Nuh-uh. Nuh-uh.
I think North Melbourne on an average day could put it up to St Kilda,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe win.
Mm-hmm.
If that shows anything, we have no trust in St Kilda.
But yet again, we'd like to be proven wrong.
Oh, of course.
St Kilda can easily switch it around as they have uniqueness in their side with King, Caminiti, Dan Butler kicking goals, and Higgins. They've got a fantastic midfield group, and they've got players coming back from injury as well, like Dan McKenzie, Jones, and they've got arguably two of the best defenders in the league, with Wilkie and Sinclair.
Yeah.
So there's nothing holding them back. It's just they're losing games.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
and in quite boring fashion, may I add.
we've been proven wrong before. I remember a few weeks
Mm.
ago, I'm like, oh, Richmond, opposite of Geelong. They're
Mm.
all old, nothing else. They're not good. And then they won a few games, and now they're what, ninth, 10th,
And they're in the hunt to make it into the
12th.
top 8 now.
Yeah.
So
Well, they're 12th, only out by a draw.
mm.
So yeah, yeah. They've proved us wrong, especially me, I think. But
It seems to be the season of ups and lows, inconsistencies, and a team that is consistent at the right time will make the top 8.
yeah. Well, the Saints play the Eagles this week in Perth, so it'll be good to see how both teams respond to
Mm.
what's happened recently.
A demolishing and an eyesore.
Yeah. Well, speaking of, let's go into the
Predictions.
predictions. Okay.
We've got an absolute banger on Thursday night, Elijah.
Oh, we do.
It's the rematch of the elimination final or qualifying final. No, qualifying was qualifying. Brisbane, Richmond at the Gabba.
Brisbane.
Brisbane.
Yeah. I think Richmond have a chance. I think they play really well on those
Hmm.
kinds of grounds, but I think Brisbane at home, I don't think there's
It's
a
very
reason to go
difficult.
against them. Yeah. Okay.
Grand final rematch Sydney Geelong.
I I'm not sure. I've picked Geelong.
I'm picking Geelong as well.
Yeah. This one's tough because Jeremy Cameron will be out, and the Swans coming back from a very big win.
Hmm.
Um,
And we've seen with big wins against the Eagles, they usually lose.
yeah, I was having a few times. Yeah. Um, but Sydney going back home. Um, how Geelong will carry through their winning streak,
Hmm.
kind of, into enemy territory. And I know it's a rounded ground, so how they play in that, I'm not too sure.
Mm.
I've got them anyway, though. I just trust them.
Yeah,
Just trust them a bit
I
more.
I agree. Adelaide, North Melbourne at Adelaide Oval. Surely North Melbourne have some sort of chance.
A bit of an upset here. Going Adelaide.
Yeah, I'm going Adelaide as well for obvious reasons. A banger to start off your Saturday. To start off your Saturday
Hmm.
afternoon with Adelaide and North Melbourne. It's the Bulldogs against the Dockers at Marvel Stadium.
I have a few upsets this round, and this is one of them.
Hmm.
I guess the start of them. I have Fremantle.
Going off your syndrome that you're talking about, the infectious disease that's known as the bite, I'd like to tip the Dockers as well.
Yeah. I can see why
Mm.
you go Bulldogs because Bulldogs play well at Marvel. It's the Bulldogs, got Bontempelli, they got Libba, they've got Bailey Smith, they've got their big forwards. Cool.
Hmm.
But I also want to say, like, the bye rounds
It's a
have
bye.
that literally every game a team has played a team which hasn't had a bye.
Hmm.
The previous week they've lost. So
Yep.
um,
Um.
that's that. Yeah, the 3 hour in this one.
Suns Collingwood up at Heritage Bank.
I was so tempted to tip the other way, but I'm going Collingwood purely because it's Collingwood.
I'm going Collingwood. Collingwood because it's Collingwood.
But I want to
Um.
give Suns a chance though. I want to say I'm very tempted
mm,
to switch that pick up. If it wasn't for the fact that I have another two big upsets coming
mm.
up, I would have definitely flipped that around for those extra gimmies. But um,
I'd also like to say that Charlie Ballard is having a really great season for the
oh,
Suns.
oh yeah,
So he's
definitely.
one to watch in that game against the Pies.
Hmm.
I'm guessing you're gonna put an upset here with the Bombers and Port Adelaide being at the G.
Yeah, I got the Bombers.
I'm interested to see how the Power handle the MCG. I'm gonna go the Bombers.
Mm.
Um, if the Power can win at the MCG against a top 8 team who play quite well, and Port Adelaide are going into enemy territory here. Obviously being at the MCG. If Port Adelaide can handle the pressure of being at the MCG, then I don't see any reasoning as to why they can really push for some premiership glory. But I've got the Bombers solely because I don't know how Port Adelaide play at the G.
Yeah. I think I can't remember if the Bulldogs game was at MCG, but I know that they played Richmond there and
Mhm.
they won.
Mhm.
Port Adelaide won rather. So, I think they can play well there. Um,
Mhm.
but this one also falls under my bye syndrome category,
Yeah.
unfortunately. So I've got Essendon, but I think
Mhm.
either team really has a shot here, and this could
Mm.
come down to the wire or the last kick, even.
Mm. Hawthorn, Carlton.
I have Hawthorn.
I have Hawthorn.
Good, because we're gonna.
I have. We want to win.
We do,
Go the mighty Hawks.
we do. Carlton's off a bye. We've come off a big loss. I think it's time to bounce
The
back.
infectious disease known as the bye.
Yes, but we also know Sam Mitchell decides to whip. Not literally. But they decides to put these boys back into shape after
Mm.
a loss like that. So we know it's possible.
Mhm.
We've seen it before this season.
Mhm.
Let's see it happen again. Let's go Hawks.
Yep. Congratulations to Sam Mitchell. He's been inducted into the Hall of Fame as well. That is quite an honor for him.
Mhm.
Yeah, Sam Mitchell seems to concoct a masterful plan after being demolished, and really puts the challenge up for the boys. And I'd probably like to see a couple changes to the team, which is a bit of left of center.
Mhm.
Um, Solely because it's just something different. Whereas Carlton usually play the same boys every week. Um, Melbourne GWS.
Melbourne.
I've got the Giants.
Okay.
Even though I reckon this one is going to be what the cure for the infectious disease, the cancer known as the bye. GWS will win by 3 points.
3 points.
Mhm.
Oh, I was thinking Melbourne by about 4 goals, but yeah. I can see it. Melbourne's had not too great form, pretty much all
Mm,
year, barring King's birthday. So, um, look, I could definitely see it. Giants are a very
mhm.
competitive team, but Melbourne, I think Clayton Oliver is 2 weeks
Is
away.
out for 2 weeks
He's
away.
this is 1 to 2 weeks away, which doesn't help for this game, but
Mm,
it's signs that Melbourne might get better soon,
mm,
maybe not as soon as Sunday, but
mhm,
I think they're a sneaky chance to make noise, and I think they can win this
mm,
game. At a ground they've won it before, Melbourne.
mhm.
So, yeah, I expect them to win this one.
St Kilda Eagles at Optus.
I think that the team is going to bounce back from a really, really big bad loss. And it's going to break headlines everywhere. I'm going Saints.
Oh yeah, if they don't, it's gonna be boring performance against absolute mayhem. Um, can the Boar team beat the Eagles? And I think they can. I'm going the Saints.
Yeah, I think the state where the teams are basically is whoever's the most
Mhm.
enthusiastic wins, because
Mhm.
neither team's showing a lot of effort. Some players are, yes, but not everyone, and
Mhm.
it's not the culture that's going on either side at the moment either.
Mm.
So yeah, but I think you just think Saints are a better team. So
Mhm.
yeah,
I agree. On to player of the round.
yeah. Player of the round. Who you got?
I've got McAndrew. I've got a youthful defender who just clung to everything against the Hawks. He played fantastically and he's showing why he is a top 10 pick. He is unique as any other. His roof is Aaliyah, or probably even better if he wants to get better. Even though had a bit of controversy at the start of the year with suspension due to some form of arrest or fine or speeding, he's really showing why he is a unique defender, and he's going to be a tough defender to verse in the future. He just conked everything, and I've just got McAndrew as my best player of the week.
Yep, fair enough. I have Jordan Dawson.
Mm-hmm.
Don't know who he gave it to me in the past, but he's really, really good this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Against Collingwood, despite the loss, 35 disposals, 9 marks, 12 tackles, 71% disposal efficiency as well. Against Collingwood, come on, that's great. Great stuff. Anyway, 5 intercepts, 9 score involvements. He's doing so much on the weekend, and yeah, there's just no way in my mind, it could go to anyone else this week, considering the absolute balls which is going on. His team, the only pretty much close game of the round that a team lost in, he put his team on his back and just lost by the skin of their teeth. So
he really puts the saying "Captain Courageous" up there as he's just a great captain for the Crows in his second season at the club, no less. So Jordan Dawson is a fantastic player, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's up for All-Australian selection this year as well. Wouldn't you agree?
I don't know if it's his second season.
Second season at the Crows. He played at the Swans, but he's been there for 2 seasons at the Crows.
Fair enough. I completely forgot about that stint. Yeah.
On to what made us giggle. There's only a couple things that made me giggle. Because I was a very, very angry man watching some of these games. I'd like to point out the Lions supporter eating the meat pie, and he has sauce all over his mouth. That was pretty funny. Man has no care in the world and really embodies Fraser Garrick that one time he ate a meat pie at the gym. So good on to that old fella, the old Lions fella. And I'd like to point out Ben Keys, who absolutely soiled himself because he stole Mason Cox's glasses and just ran away. And in another shot, pretty much afterwards, it showed his white pants having a suspicious brown stain where your bum hole is. And I found that pretty funny because he just ran away from the big Texan, Mason Cox. He's pretty funny. I watched his podcast and he said the reason why he did it is to bring a bit of flair. The reason why he pushed the player on the mark after kicking that second goal he kicked is to get the crowd involved and really set the game ablaze. But for his goggles to be ripped off and get Ben Key's got a $1,500 fine for doing this, by the way. So that's what I found that made me giggle. What made you giggle, Elijah? What made you laugh?
This is a bit grim, but not a whole lot. The state of this week has just been bad, and coming off all the James Sicily stuff, it's just sad. Not a whole lot in the sporting and even esports world, which I'm super hyped about because even going to competitive Overwatch. I know this isn't the platform for it, but yeah, it's just downhill. I guess the World Cup for Overwatch is on, the qualifiers, but Yeah, Australia's 2-0 at the moment, which is good. We beat Thailand and we beat Singapore. That's all I know. That's we play New Zealand, Malaysia, and India next week or this weekend.
Well,
So
I'm gonna make you giggle, Elijah, because I'm I'm frustrated.
yes,
So, excuse my profanity.
bit of French.
It's taken us 13 episodes for one swear. And that's probably gonna go into the guidelines.
That's a fine out of your contract. Sorry, mate.
That's God damn it, cane corns come haunt my dreams. Okay, I am bloody frustrated. I have never seen red so much. It's gone to the point where, of course, I swear. The boring state of this round was appalling, especially the Brisbane St Kilda game. I'll put that as the benchmark for this round. I have never been so bored in my mind. Play better footy, guys. Like, come on, you got 6 games, and there was probably only 1, maybe 2 games that were watchable. The rest, I'd probably rather watch news on the sunken submarine, because at least then, at least then, I'd get some form of information. Like, I discovered that one of the people on the submarine got what his ancestor got on the Titanic, because there was a relative that went onto the submarine who was also on the Titanic. So I found that interesting. I found it more interesting than this round of football. And I know this is very controversial because of the things that's going on in the world at the moment. What is happening with the world, by the way? In Australia, we have roadworks and trains are down. We've got floating bodies in the Murray River. We've got St Albans stabbings. Like, what's going on with the world? But going back to footy, it's like it's all these horoscope people going, let me do some witchcraft here and just cause some chaos. And the chaos is an absolute boring spectacle that I'd like to call round 15. Round 15? Yeah, round 15. It was so bloody boring, where, like I said before, it made blind kids cry. It made everyone cry. Probably besides the Collingwood Adelaide game and the Geelong Melbourne game, brother, I wanted to fall asleep. And this round was worse than what Harry Mackay's set shot kicking is like, because it is just frustrating. I would like to throw this bottle in disgust. Disappointing. You're AFL footballers and you're putting up such disappointing displays on the Colosseum, where in Greece or Rome you'd have cavaliers and men on horses putting on an absolute spectacle every single time they entered into their arena. And these gladiators we call AFL footballers, what do? Oh, I'm a bit scared to tackle them, because if I hit their head, I'm going to get suspended. I'm not prepared to take risks for my team, because I don't want to play in the grand final. Oh, come on, guys. Play better football. Essendon play better football. Fremantle play better football. Every other team besides Collingwood, Adelaide, Geelong, and Melbourne partially play better football. I want to see something better this week.
Good call.
Good call.
Good, good call. Back down to you, BT. No, yeah, I reckon you're right on that one. It was a slugfest, but hopefully, with all the teams back in this coming round, we'll see a lot more competition.
And we've finally got bangers of games.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean,
We've got.
there's a few. I'm looking forward to, I guess, Thursday night even.
Mm-hmm,
To Tigers rejuvenated going against the Lions at the Gabba. Even Swans Cats SCG. Um, Zach Merritt versus Zach Butters
mm-hmm.
on Saturday
That's
night,
gonna be.
mate. Beauty. And pretty much, yeah, both of the Hawks, Blues, and these Giants games on the Sunday looking good too. So there's
Mm,
upside, which is great.
mm.
Hmm.
And there's a bit of downside with West Coast and St Kilda.
Yeah, well,
Um,
that's one way to end off the week, but look, has to the fun has to end eventually.
Imagine going into work saying, "Oh, I watched my team St Kilda beat West Coast."
That's cool.
Time to get to work, fellas.
That's cool.
Final messages. Final messages.
Um, I don't have a whole lot at the moment. I think you have a couple
I
things.
do. I do.
Yeah,
What are your top 4 teams to make the prelim at this very point
the
in the
prelim.
season?
Okay. So if I'm thinking about,
Mm-hmm.
there's two ways I can go about it. Is teams can rise and
Mm-hmm.
fall on the ladder. Is it just,
Mm-hmm.
I guess 3 ways. Is it just who's like the top 4 best teams who probably will make
Mm-hmm.
it? Or is it like, okay, final started tomorrow. Who's making it?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think locking Collingwood, locking
Mm-hmm.
Port Adelaide. And for the other two teams, no Lions, no D's. I'm going Adelaide Crows
Mm-hmm.
and I'm going Richmond Tigers.
Wow, that is some huge
Yeah. So
calling there.
Pies, Power, Crows, Tigers are my teams to make the prelims.
Preliminary final.
Yeah.
Um, I've only got one change to that, and um, if the Lions can, and the only condition I have here is if the Lions can win at the MCG twice this year before the finals, but I don't trust them. But
Yeah.
at the same time, if they get home finals, I just see them making it, but they won't beat Collingwood. But I do see a Port Adelaide preliminary final, and that would be such a spectacle to watch.
Yeah.
That would probably be better than the grand final,
Oh, it
to be
would be.
honest.
Mate, which the
It would
grand
be.
final is those two.
Would you fly to watch that game at the
Yeah.
Adelaide Oval?
Oh, I wouldn't be able to
That
get a
would,
seat, but I would.
you'd sit on the hill with the Div 12 Rezzies. Um, no, but my 4 teams are Collingwood, Port Adelaide, Adelaide, and Brisbane.
Yeah. I guess if you are a Brisbane fan, good news, you can play MCG once more this year.
Ooh.
And that is against Melbourne. Yes, you fly down to Melbourne, I guess one other time as well. But that's Collingwood at Marvel.
Mm,
So yeah, only come down once more against Melbourne. But yeah, that's still a must-win game. That's in a couple weeks actually.
mm-hmm.
So yeah,
I forgot what player this bloke played for. I think it was North Melbourne. Barry Cable has been stripped of his Hall of Fame status due to ongoing criticism, allegations that have been proven true, due to some inappropriate behavior with children. So we do not condone. We do not want people in society knowing that being a person like that is just not good. Like, don't touch little children. Um, and yeah, Barry Cable, not a good man. Um, did I say? Oh yes, my final comment is, as a Richmond supporter, I'd be livid that Damien Hardwick has came out and said that he wants to coach again. He misses it. He loves it. It's in his veins, very being. Um, what team would he go to? I don't know. But if I was a Richmond supporter, I'd be pretty frustrated because it's only been a month or so since he stepped away from the game and now just wants to come back. It's understandable to take a break. Like Alistair Clarkson stated that he wanted a break, and it's okay to have a change of culture, like Alistair Clarkson did. But now with the allegations that he's had to step away due to stress. But then I look at coaches like John Longmire and Adam Simpson, who have been at the helm of their clubs for pretty much the equal amount of time, even Chris Scott as well. And arguably Brad Scott, who was at North Melbourne, then AFL, now the Bombers. You look at them and you say, why aren't they taking their leave if it's so stressful? Like, I understand Richmond is a bigger club, but I'm not sure how to feel about Damien Hardwick stating these feelings.
I mean, in some sense, it's like, oh, okay, he wants to come back. I can see almost like an Alistair Clarkson situation again, where he comes back. It's cool because he wanted to come back, but then all of a sudden he's out, and not for the same reasons. I don't know why Clarko left stress from other things outside of football as well, but yeah, I can see him lasting about 2 months. In terms of what teams he goes to, wet toast. The wet toast waffles is a good team to look at going to, especially if they're wanting to change up the coaching staff there. Other teams like even North Melbourne, if they wanted to move past Brett Bratton, I don't see why you would, but if let's say they wanted to, that's an option there. I don't think there's any other places at the moment. I think everywhere at the moment you've either got a new coach or they're going okay. They like their system. So, yeah, bit of a rough spot. But hey, I think McQualters is doing a good job at the Tigers anyway. So even if I'm a Richmond supporter, I mean, it's basically the equivalent of like Clarko said today that he wants to come back to Hawthorn. He's like, but just doing good. It's like that. So
my question to you is: could we see a dual coaching team? So, for example, Adam Simpson with Damien Hardwick combined coaches, or do you like seeing only that one single coach?
I don't think it's ever going to happen.
You don't think it's ever going to happen?
No, there's no reason to.
Do you think it could work?
No.
Fair enough. You can only have the assistant coaches and then the main head coach.
Yeah, there's a reason why it's a head coach and then assistant coaches. I
Fair
remember
enough.
even in Overwatch League, professional scene for the game Overwatch, I think it was the Hangzhou Spark, who had 2 dual head coaches, and it was a mess because you had basically 2 different people saying 2 different things, like a similar
2
thing,
voices, 2 different messages.
2 different strategies, which clashed with each other. They didn't work, and they lost basically because of the confusion around that. Now, esports is a completely different thing to professional, like physical sports. Yeah, I can get behind that, but also I think it's a similar memo where you have 2 coaches who are think differently. They're experienced from different things, influenced by different things. You can't put them in the same room and get them to agree on what's the best course of action that they would like to take or coach to get the results your team needs. I can't see it happening, even at a junior
Fair
level.
enough. Fair enough. And I guess we'll leave this episode here. The boring round is over. And that is Jakob and Elijah from the Premiership Podcast saying toodaloo.
Thank you. Like, subscribe, ring the bell, Twitter, all that good stuff.
Yes.
Thank you. See you next week. Bye bye.
Woo!